Southern Arizona Territory. The sky is the hard blue of old horseshoes, and the sun already tastes of iron and dust. You stand at the lip of a dry arroyo and feel the heat lift off the earth in waves like breath. The Dragoon Mountains to the north cut a serrated silhouette against the sky. Sage and cholla cluster on the slopes like bristling sentries. Men move beneath that sun with the sluggish deliberation of those who have been taught to conserve sweat. Cavalry troopers in faded blue, leather leggings rubbed smooth, cartridge boxes slapping their hips, sabers slung but unused. Mules smell of hay and worry. The air is thin with the metallic tang of gun oil and the faint copper of dried blood from a skirmish 2 days past. Captain Elias Monroe squints into the distance, the crease of his brow throwing a shadow across the bridge of his nose. He is 40, a worn man with a lower lip that curls from too many silenced commands. His brass insignia glints at the front of the column, a single star on a broad-brimmed hat. Beside him, Lieutenant Samuel K. Hart, younger, more taut, consults a folded sketch of the terrain. Hart's fingers are stained with soot. His cavalry boots still carry the mud of last week's march. Both men wear the standard-issue Springfield rifles slung across their shoulders, the iron cool against their necks when the shade passes. They are men who trust maps and compasses and the weight of numbers. Between them and the nearest ridgeline walks the guide, an Apache scout named Nantan. He moves differently from the troopers, low to the land, feet finding micropaths through gravel, shoulders loose. Nantan's skin is the color of adobe. His hair is braided and tied with a narrow strip of red cloth. The men have given him a numbered badge pinned to his chest, a token of his employment with the army. But the badge is a fragile thing against a man who grew under a different sky. He carries a Winchester carbine across his back, more for the sense of balance than hunger. The carbine is old and worn and has never sounded in anger when it mattered. In his hand he holds a short staff, smoothed by time, carved with notches that only he understands. There is a peculiar silence as the column halts. The troopers fan out in a rough semicircle, horses snorting and shifting, the clink of harness like distant metal rain. Shade is scarce. Dust plays at the hem of cappards. Monroe turns to the guide and says, "Lo, you'll take us through that ravine and up the north ridge. Good, steady trail?" Nantan smiles in the manner of someone who keeps counsel with rocks. "There is trail," he says in English, his accent measured, precise. He points with his staff toward a shallow valley that forks like a broken Y between two low hills. "Water, wood, good camp." Monroe nods. The men trust the guide because the guide has been trusted before. The U.S. Army had employed Apache scouts for decades with the simple logic that those who knew the land could lead through it better than a map. It's a practical arrangement born of mutual need. The Army needs knowledge it does not possess. Scouts need wages, a path toward survival, sometimes a means to settle scores in a world of shifting shelter. The relationship is stitched together with bargaining and brittle threads of respect, and with the tacit knowledge that any guide holds power the brigades rarely understand. You can hear the horses' hooves like a slow drumbeat as the column begins to move. Nantan walks slightly ahead, not commanding but not following either. He pauses by a stone outcrop to examine a flattened patch of soil, to sniff the wind, to lift a handful of dust as if tasting its stories. The scent of creosote rises. The sun makes his shadow long and thin. He crouches and rubs a finger along a track, tracing it back toward the east as if reading a letter written by elk and jackrabbit. Monroe watches him, the corner of one eye calculating distance and endurance, while Hart murmurs something about rationing water and pace. The troopers tighten their saddles, checking the cinches and the sling of cartridge belts. Musket and saber are now part ornament, part threat. The sense of being owned by the landscape settles over the men. They are visitors with orders. Nantan's face is unreadable until he looks up and gives a slight, almost imperceptible nod. He leads them into the forked valley. At first, the ground is deceptive, a faint trail that bends between Mesquite and Ocotillo. The men find what they want: hoof prints, the crushed limbs of a recent passage, the glitter of a shale rock that could be a marker. The land seems to conform to the guide's gestures, but the valley is a place that hides as much as it reveals. Its brush grows thicker, the stones sharper, the drainage steeper than the map implied. The riders begin to slow. Water is farther than Monroe expected. The midday sun scrapes at throats. Nantan's pace remains unhurried, his jaw set as if he hears time differently. In the rear, Corporal James O'Rourke, broad-shouldered, a man who moves with the inertia of an old mill, calls up a cautionary word about the trail's recency. He's watched Nantan through 2 campaigns. The scout brought the regiment to a hidden spring once, and Monroe has not forgotten that day. Yet O'Rourke also watches the guide's hands, the way Nantan's fingers brush a cactus spine almost as an apology. There is something tactical in that care, a deliberation that offers no clue to motive. You feel it, the slow pressing tension of men in an environment that can decide their fates without a single shot fired. As the column threads deeper, small signs begin to irritate at the edges. Tracks that double back, a crushed juniper branch placed almost ceremonially across the path, the angle of a cairn turned like a secretive eye. The soldiers notice them and exchange guarded looks. The land itself seems to conspire. The arroyo mouths close into blind gullies, and every ridge promises an unseen hollow. A sense of being turned becomes a physical ache in the bones. The men begin to suspect possibilities they do not yet name, that the trail is deliberate, that time itself is being bent. Nantan continues to walk as if he were conducting the day. He does not raise his carbine. He does not point his staff. He simply moves with the patience of someone orchestrating something larger than a fight. The soldiers' mouths dry. The sun chops the light into brittle shards. The Dragoon Mountains watch, untouched and indifferent.
The men pressed forward behind Nantan, horses snorting, tack creaking, a metallic heartbeat beneath the desert sun. What began as a clear valley now twists like a wounded snake, narrowing between stone outcrops and steepening embankments. The troopers expect an ascent, a ridge, a view, but every bend reveals only more thorn brush and sun-seared gravel. Lieutenant Hart rides up alongside Monroe, voice pitched low. "Sir, I believe we've turned east again." Monroe's brow tightens. "Impossible. We've been heading north for the better part of—" He stops, glances at the distant horizon. The Dragoon Mountains, once ahead, now shimmer to their right, then behind, then gone altogether behind a haze of heat and rock. It's subtle, almost deniable, but doubt is no longer a stranger in the captain's mind. It has set up camp. Ahead, Nantan pauses at a dry wash and crouches again, scanning for signs. He touches a pebble, then the soil, as if asking permission from the earth. One of the privates mutters, "He's dancing with ghosts." Another replies, "As long as the ghosts know where water is, let 'em dance." But the water never comes. By the 3rd hour of the march, the canyon walls grow steeper, hemming them in. Soon the horses must descend one at a time through a crooked passage no wider than a wagon rut. Loose shale clinks and rattles down the slope like nervous teeth. Dust rises in ochre clouds that sting the lungs. Sergeant Wilcox curses beneath his breath, tugging his horse's bridle. This isn't a trail, it's a funnel. Still Nantan walks. His face glistens with sweat, but his steps are steady, his gaze forward. It unsettles the men, not his silence, but his certainty. At noon, they reach what appears to be a clearing, a broad, flat stretch of hardpan encircled by low buttes. Relief sweeps through the column. Helmets come off, canteens are raised. Monroe signals a halt. Horses lower their heads, sides heaving. The men dismount, grateful for even the illusion of rest. But Hart remains on his saddle, turning slowly in place. He studies the rock formations encircling them, squat buttes like broken teeth. Something nags at the back of his mind. He's seen that particular butte before. Taut Butte, he murmurs, a flat-topped rise, its face marked by a singular band of ochre quartz halfway down. He remembers it clearly. He passed it just after sunrise, from the west. Now it lies to the east. Hart wheels his horse toward Monroe. "Captain, we've been here." Monroe's stare hardens. "You're certain?" "As certain as I know my own handwriting." A ripple of unease moves through the ranks. Corporal O'Rourke circles the clearing, scanning the ground. He kneels, presses his broad palm to a patch of dirt, finds a partial hoof mark. One worn horseshoe, missing the front left nail. His own horse wears such a shoe. Hart raises his voice without shouting. "Captain Monroe, we are marching in circles." Every head turns toward the guide. Nantan stands at the far end of the clearing, atop a small rise. His silhouette is sharp against the pale horizon. He does not look back at them immediately. When he finally does, his expression is free of mockery. No grin, no sneer, only calm inevitability. He lifts one hand, not in apology, in instruction. He points toward the North Pass. Monroe stiffens. He wants us moving again. Hart's throat is dry. "Sir, if we keep following him, we may chase our own tails until sundown, or until we drop." A long silence. Leather creaks, metal clinks. The wind hisses through creosote and thorn. Then Monroe gives the order. "Mount up." Some of the men hesitate. "Sir, mount up." Bitterness rises among the ranks like heat haze, but no one defies a direct order. One by one, boots find stirrups. Canteens are corked. Sabers settle in scabbards. The column reforms. Nantan descends the rise. He does not hurry. He does not gloat. He merely walks ahead once more, staff in hand, the single badge on his chest flashing in the sun. O'Rourke rides closer behind him now, eyes narrowed. He studies every step, committing the man's gait to memory, every turn of the trail, every cairn and crushed twig, every sign of intention. Because the truth no one yet says out loud hangs like a specter over their heads. They are not lost. They are being led. The column moves again, quieter now, suspicion pressing down on every saddle. No more idle talk, no more jokes passing between ranks, only the sound of leather straps creaking beneath strain and the slow, rhythmic clop of hooves over unforgiving stone. The sun climbs higher. Heat beads like molten glass on eyelids. Dust clings to sweat-slick skin. Even the horses grow reluctant, ears flicking back at every command. Somewhere behind them, a vulture circles, indifferent and patient. Nantan guides them into another ravine, a shallow cut-through shale bordered by brittle scrub oak. The land dips, rises, then narrows again into a sloping defile. The men glance toward the ridges. There are too many blind spots, too many angles where rifles could be waiting. Sabers loosen in their scabbards. Fingers rest closer to Springfield triggers. It is Lieutenant Hart who speaks first. "Captain Monroe, I request permission to question the guide." Monroe doesn't look at him. "Denied." "With respect, sir, I said denied." Hart's jaw works. He reins back, teeth grinding. Behind him, Sergeant Wilcox mutters to no one in particular. Man's loyalty was bought with coin, but coin spends different in a man's conscience. Corporal O'Rourke rides even closer to Nantan now, no more than 2 horse lengths away. The scout glances back once, notes the looming Irishman with unreadable indifference, then continues forward as though O'Rourke were nothing more than a dust devil. But O'Rourke sees things most of the others miss. He sees how Nantan deliberately scrapes his staff against certain rocks, leaving faint chalky marks. He sees how the guide avoids larger open ground in favor of weaving through pockets of brush. He sees rabbit tracks, fresh, but no rabbits themselves, as if the animals knew better than to linger here. Another hour passes. Monroe finally calls a halt beneath the crumbling overhang of a sandstone bluff. Horses are allowed to drink, sparingly. Men slump in their saddles or lean against rock faces, canteens rationed to single sips. No fires, no food, no rest, only waiting. Hart dismounts and walks directly toward Nantan. Monroe moves as if to intervene, but stops. Perhaps curiosity outweighs caution. Hart stops 5 paces from the guide. "Where are you taking us?" Nantan's gaze lifts slowly. His English is measured, almost surgical. "To where you want to go." "We want to find the raiders seen 2 nights ago near White River Crossing." "Yes." "Is that where we're going?" A long pause. "Yes," Nantan repeats. Hart's eyes narrow. "Is that where we are now?" Nantan blinks once. "Not yet." O'Rourke steps forward. "We've seen the same butte twice." The scout's head tilts slightly. "The land is full of circles." Hart snaps. "Answer plainly." Nantan finally looks between them both, not defiant, not fearful, simply still. "You chase ghosts," he says quietly, "but ghosts do not walk straight." A silence follows that no one knows how to break. Monroe finally approaches. His voice is controlled, almost eerily calm. "Are you leading us to the enemy or away from them?" Nantan meets his stare. Neither man blinks. "I lead you," the scout says, "so you stay alive." The words strike like a thrown stone. Hart scoffs. "By starving us in circles?" Nantan's nostrils flare. "If I walk you straight, you die straight." He taps his staff once on the rock. Echoes hum through the ravine. "There are eyes on these ridges, not mine." Sergeant Wilcox turns sharply, rifle raised, scanning the cliffs. The rest of the men stiffen, hands go to weapons, heartbeats quicken. Monroe reads the guide's face and sees no lie. "Mount up," the captain orders softly. "We move." But this time no one trusts the silence overhead. Every saddle creaks like a question. Every breath feels borrowed. Somewhere high above, unseen watchers may be waiting to collect. And the only man who knows where those watchers sit walks ahead without a rifle in his hands.
The sun begins its slow slide westward, turning the sky the color of tarnished brass. Long shadows stretch across the ravine like claws. The column follows Nantan deeper into terrain that feels less like land and more like intention, as if every bend was chosen not by geography, but by will. The path begins to rise. Loose gravel skitters beneath hooves. Horses grunt and strain. Saddlebags rattle. Boots knock rock. The air thins, cooler now, but no one feels relief. The tension has ripened into something sour and physical. Corporal O'Rourke rides close behind Nantan, studying each deliberate footfall. He counts the turns in his head. Left around a wind-gnarled pine, down into a shallow basin, up along the spine of a ridge, right through a split between two boulders. Then, without warning, Nantan stops. The column grinds to a halt behind him. They stand at the crest of a low rise. Before them lies open basin land, wide and barren. A long flat stretch of pale dust ringed by crumbling bluffs. Hart's brow tightens. His eyes flick left, then right, then slowly widen. He recognizes this place. It is the exact same basin where they stopped at noon. The same fractured butte to the east. The same sun-baked stump bleached by lightning. The same scattering of hoof tracks that now look like signatures of mockery. Sergeant Wilcox spits. Son of a... The entire regiment erupts into motion. Some curse, some laugh in disbelief. One private hurls his hat to the dirt and stomps it. Another draws his saber halfway before Hart snaps, "Hold!" Monroe rides forward, face hollow with realization. He fixes his gaze on Nantan, voice low, controlled. "You've brought us here twice." "No," Nantan answers calmly. "You walked twice." The distinction stings hotter than accusation. O'Rourke's hand drops to his holster. "Captain, I say we tie him up, strip him of his weapon, make him talk straight." Murmurs of agreement ripple through the ranks. Hart raises his rifle, not to fire, but to aim just enough to imply intent. "Captain, if he's playing both sides, he's buying us time," Monroe says quietly. The words silence them. Monroe dismounts, slowly, careful not to make sudden moves. He approaches the Apache scout on foot. Dust lifts with every step. Nantan watches him, unreadable as ever. Monroe stops a few paces away. "You could have led us into an ambush at any moment. You didn't." Nantan tilts his chin slightly. "If you die in ambush, you die soldiers." Monroe frowns. "And what are we dying as now?" "Fish," Nantan says simply. "Caught on your own hook, turned by your own weight." The metaphor draws confusion across several faces, but Monroe, perhaps the only one patient enough to seek meaning in it, asks softly, "What are we hooked to?" "Your trail," the scout replies, "the one you think you follow." Hart's frustration boils over. "Enough riddles. Speak plain." Nantan slowly lifts his hand, pointing to the northern ridge. At first, nothing moves. Then, a flicker. A shape. A lone rider silhouetted against the sky, motionless, watching. Behind him, two more, then 4, then 10. Geronimo's people? Kayatero raiders? Yavapai stragglers? No one can tell at this distance, only that they are armed and perched above like hawks, with patience sharpened into blades. Nantan lowers his hand. "They wait for your line to stretch," he says. "They wait for you to chase the mirage. They wait for the moment when thirst makes you foolish." Monroe breathes slowly. "And you've kept us from giving them that moment?" Nantan nods once. Hart lowers his rifle, shame flickering across his features. The men look to Monroe. The captain turns to his scout. "Then where do we go now?" Nantan looks past him towards a narrow cleft between two bluffs. Not forward, not back. He taps the ground with his staff. A cross. The men stare at the cleft. It looks barely wide enough for a single rider. Monroe considers, then mounts again. His voice carries through the ranks, not shouted, but firm. "Column, single file, no sound." We follow the scout. No one protests this time, because the watchers on the ridge remain still, watching, waiting, measuring time in heartbeats. And only one man among them knows how much longer restraint will hold.
The regiment funnels toward the narrow cleft in the bluff, one man at a time. No voices now, no curses, no bravado. Only the relentless grind of saddle leather and the soft, hollow strike of hooves against stone. Even the horses seem to sense the precipice beneath their steps. Not a drop, but a decision. The cleft cuts between two jagged slabs of rock, like a wound. The passage is hardly wider than a horse's flanks. Overhead, the canyon swallows the sky into a thin blue ribbon. Every sound, breath, metal, heartbeat echoes in close quarters. O'Rourke keeps his hand near his revolver, though he knows it would be useless here. If Nantan chose to betray them in this choke point, he wouldn't need to raise a rifle. One rolling boulder, one whistle to unseen men, one decision, and the regiment would be crushed like insects in glass. But Nantan does not betray. He walks, every step as deliberate as scripture. Monroe rides just behind him now, no longer trailing at a distance, but close enough to speak if needed. He does not. Words feel too loud, too fragile. The cleft bends sharply left, then descends into a low corridor of pale stone. The temperature shifts, cooler, damp even. The smell of moss and wet shale rises, foreign to men who've tasted only dust for days. They enter a hollow, a hidden pocket of land no wider than 2 wagons, nestled like a secret beneath the earth. A rivulet trickles down from the rock wall, forming a shallow pool. Not enough for indulgence, but enough for survival. The men stare, disbelief dulling their instincts. Hart dismounts first, stumbling toward the water. Knees in the dirt, he cups his hands, drinks like he's been reborn. Others follow. Disciplined, yes, but trembling with relief. Wilcox releases a long, broken sigh. "Well, I'll be damned." O'Rourke takes the water and splashes his face. He glances up at Nantan, the man who could have killed them 100 times today, and did not. "You could have told us sooner," the Irishman mutters. Nantan's gaze lingers on the water. "If I speak too soon, you do not listen." Monroe walks toward the center of the hollow. He removes his hat, not in surrender, in acknowledgement. "You looped us, not to deceive us, but to shake them off." Nantan nods once. Those who watch from ridges grow tired when prey refuses to run straight. Will they follow? Not here. Too narrow, too still.
Their patience stays with the high ground. They wait for the next kill. Monroe absorbs it, looks back at his men, some drinking, some slumped against stone, some staring at their guide with the uneasy gratitude one reserves for forces greater than comprehension. Then he speaks. To every man in this column, holster your rifles. No one raises steel against this scout again. If I see it, I'll break you myself. No one argues. O'Rourke stands up, straightening his back. His voice is gruff, but sincere. Then I say this, Captain. I'd ride behind this man again, even if he walks me blind. Nanton looks at him. A rare flicker of expression touches his face. Not a smile, but approval. The regiment drinks. They refill canteens. They breathe air that does not burn. For the first time since dawn, they let themselves feel something close to safety. But Monroe knows safety is temporary. Water buys time, not peace. He steps beside Nanton. What comes next? Nanton crouches, dragging a line in the dirt. Then another line beside it, parallel. 2 trails, one for hunters, one for ghosts. Monroe studies the twin paths etched in sand. Which one is ours? Nanton looks up. You choose.
The hollow is quiet now. Only the slow drip of water against stone breaks the silence, steady, patient, like time itself exhaling. The sun has lowered beyond the canyon rim, casting the pool in cool shade. Men sit in stillness, their bodies slack, but their minds sharpening. Calm is not rest. Calm is preparation. Captain Monroe kneels beside Nanton's drawing in the dirt, the 2 parallel lines, hunters and ghosts. The Apache scout watches him without speaking. Monroe's voice is low. If we take the hunter's path, we go back up, face whoever waits on the ridges. Yes, Nanton replies. And the ghost's path? Nanton traces the second line with his staff. You vanish. No trail, no sound, no glory. Monroe considers this. Behind him, Hart and O'Rourke approach. Wilcox joins them. None of them speak until spoken to. Monroe turns. Lieutenant, sergeant, corporal. They stand straight. Monroe looks at Hart first. You wanted the truth. Now you have it. Which path would you take? Hart glances toward the canyon entrance, where, beyond sight, the watchers still wait with rifles and patience. I've chased glory before. It never fed me. Monroe nods. O'Rourke. The Irishman snorts. I've looped enough for one lifetime, Captain. If the scout can walk me out of here without firing a shot, I'll walk behind him barefoot. Wilcox cracks a grin that doesn't last longer. I've buried enough men in rock and sun. I'll take the ghost trail. Monroe exhales. He stands, turns to his men. All right then. His voice carries through the hollow with unshakable authority. Listen well. We are not here to conquer land we do not understand. We are not here to die proving a point no one will remember. We are here to live and report what we have seen. We take the ghost trail. No noise, no questions. When we leave this hollow, you follow Nanton, not me, not the map, him. If you lose sight of him, you stop breathing until you find him again. Understood? A murmur of assent moves through the ranks, not shouted, but solid. Monroe looks to Nanton. Lead us. The scout rises. No triumph in his posture, no satisfaction, only purpose. He moves to the back of the hollow,
where the stone wall appears seamless, no path, no crack, no way through. But Nantan presses his hand to the rock, fingers feeling for something unseen. He taps 3 times with his staff. A faint vibration answers. Then, like a sigh, the wall reveals a sliver of darkness, a fissure just wide enough for a man sideways, carved by centuries of patient water. Nantan enters without hesitation. Monroe gestures to the column. Single file, hands to shoulders, follow the man in front of you. O'Rourke mutters, "Into the throat of the earth, boys." Hart replies, "Better the earth than the buzzards." One by one, they disappear into the dark. The fissure swallows them. The air cools further. The sound of footsteps softens. The world narrows to breath and touch. Minutes, maybe hours, pass in that subterranean passage, crawling through shadow and stone. No light but the occasional flicker of sun where cracks split the ceiling above. No trail markers but the sound of Nantan's staff tapping ahead. No direction but forward. Then, light. A pale opening ahead, wider, warmer. They emerge on the far side of the bluff into a plateau of rolling grass and distant juniper. The ridges behind them are invisible now. The watchers, if still there, no longer have their trail. Nantan stands on a small rise, scanning the horizon. The wind blows cool across their faces. Monroe steps beside him. "Are we safe?" Nantan does not answer immediately. He finally says, "Today." Monroe nods. It is enough. The captain raises his voice once more. "Column, south by dusk. We make camp beyond that ridge. No fires, no noise, and no talk of what happened this day until we're back at the fort." O'Rourke glances at Nantan. "And what happens when we get there?" Nantan's gaze does not leave the horizon. "You will tell your officers that one day the land itself turned you around." Hart smirks. "And you?" The scout finally looks at him. "I will walk," he replies simply. Then, without salute or farewell, he descends the ridge, not toward the fort, not toward the hunters, but toward the land that bends to his will. The regiment watches him go, not as a guide, not as an enemy, but something rarer. A man who fought an entire regiment and won without ever lifting his rifle.